Imagine a scene so tender yet so fraught with tension. It could only unfold in the most unexpected of places, a high-end restaurant where the clink of fine china and the murmur of polite conversation usually reign supreme. Vanessa Collins, a single mother with the sharpness of a seasoned executive, sat at the most opulent table, her presence commanding the room. Her son Lucas, a 7-year-old boy with autism, had just moments before been lost in a sensory storm, his cries echoing through the hushed ambiance. But then something extraordinary happened. A black waiter, Marcus, with a calm demeanor that belied the chaos, knelt beside Lucas, his fingers tracing symbols on a napkin. The boy who had been screaming and banging his head in distress now sat in rapt silence, his eyes locked onto Marcus's gentle movements. "Get that man away from my son now." Vanessa's voice sliced through the refined air, sharp and cold. Every gaze in the room snapped to her, the wealthiest patron pointing an accusing finger at Marcus. Pierre the maitre d', his forehead glistening with sweat, stepped forward. "Ma'am, he's just helping the boy," he pleaded, his voice a mix of concern and professionalism. Vanessa, adjusting her flawless blazer, stood up, her eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and anger. "Who gave him permission to touch my son? Do you have any idea who I am?" Her words hung heavy in the now silent room. At the next table, Dr. Elizabeth Montgomery, a close friend and renowned neurologist, ducked her head, feigning a search in her purse, the scene unfolding before her both familiar and mortifying. Marcus, with a quiet dignity that seemed to glow from within, rose slowly. "I apologize for the intrusion, Mrs. Collins. Your son was using echolalia, repeating numbers to calm himself. I simply wrote them down to give him a visual anchor." Vanessa paused, her breath catching. How could this waiter know her full name? How could he speak with such authority on terms she barely understood, despite years of consultations with the country's top specialists? "Mommy, look." Lucas's voice broke the silence, his small hand pointing at the napkin, a beacon of unexpected connection in a sea of misunderstanding. The voice came unexpectedly, almost like a whisper carried by a gentle breeze. The entire restaurant seemed to pause, holding its breath in a collective silent awe. Lucas, who hadn't uttered a coherent word in nearly 2 years, pointed to the napkin where Marcus had scribbled a sequence of numbers and symbols. 7654. He said, his voice soft yet clear. "It's a countdown. It calms me down." Vanessa felt the ground beneath her vanish, her heart soaring with an indescribable mix of joy and disbelief. Her son was talking, forming complete sentences, communicating. "How did you—" Vanessa began, her voice barely a whisper. But before she could finish, the manager, Charles Westwood, appeared with urgency. "Mr. Marcus," he said, his tone barely concealing his contained fury, "please follow me to the office immediately." Turning to Vanessa, he added, "Mrs. Collins, please accept our sincerest apologies for this unacceptable incident. The employee will be dealt with accordingly." Something in Marcus's expression shifted, a quick flash of anger soon replaced by a calculating serenity that Vanessa, well-versed in the art of hostile negotiations, recognized instantly. This man was not defeated. He was assessing planning. "Don't bother," Marcus replied to the manager, his voice steady as he began unbuttoning his uniform vest. "I quit. Some places don't deserve the best of us." Turning to Lucas, Marcus offered a warm, genuine smile. "It was a pleasure meeting you, young mathematician." To everyone's astonishment, Lucas reached out his small hand, clasping Marcus's. "Stay," he pleaded in a trembling voice. "Please." Vanessa felt tears sting her eyes. In 2 years of costly therapy, international consultations, and experimental treatments, nothing had achieved what this waiter had in mere minutes. "Your car is waiting, sir," Charles interjected, clearing a path through the maze of tables. "Don't make us call security." Marcus nodded, his dignity unwavering, as he made his way toward the exit. As he passed their table, he discreetly slipped a card onto the napkin with the numbers. Vanessa picked it up instinctively, concealing it within her closed palm, her heart pounding with the weight of the moment. As Vanessa caught sight of her reflection in the mirrored doors, a tidal wave of shame crashed over her. It wasn't merely the sting of public embarrassment that gnawed at her. It was a deeper, more private torment she dared not acknowledge. She gazed down at the card in her trembling hand. Dr. Marcus Washington, Ph.D., a name synonymous with expertise in behavioral neuroscience and a master of deciphering nonverbal cues. What could none in that bustling restaurant have ever fathomed was that this moment of public disgrace marked not an end, but the inception of a profound journey, one destined to alter the course of 3 lives irrevocably. Behind the waiter's humble guise stood a man driven by an indomitable purpose, unshackled by prejudice, his own story interwoven with Vanessa's in ways unfathomable to her then. Could a simple business card truly be the catalyst for dismantling an empire of deceit that had ensnared Lucas in his silent prison? This tale of prejudice and redemption, isn't it stirring something deep within you? Over the following fortnight, Vanessa found herself caught in a tempest of regret for her actions at the restaurant and a burgeoning resolve to reach out to the man who had unlocked Lucas's voice. The card, now a sentinel on her nightstand, seemed to glare at her conscience each morning. Vanessa, the CEO of Collins Enterprises, a woman who had moved mountains with decisions affecting millions, was now immobilized by her own shame. "You must call him." Elizabeth urged, her eyes fixed on Lucas through the mansion's window. There he sat in the garden, his notebook open, repeatedly sketching the same cryptic sequence of numbers mute since the incident. "It's not pride," Vanessa murmured, her gaze locked on her son. "It's fear." Yes, fear. The same fear that had propelled her to stand alone against a boardroom of skeptics, to seize control of a company when all odds were against her. Vanessa inhaled deeply, the weight of her decisions pressing down upon her. Could she muster the courage once more? There was another reason for her hesitation, a secret even her dearest friend was unaware of, something tied to the name Washington. Vanessa finally resolved to investigate him. In the ensuing hours, what she uncovered left her breathless. DeMarcus Washington, at the age of 34, was nothing short of a prodigy. He had graduated from Harvard at the tender age of 22, secured his Ph.D. from Stanford by 26, and his scholarly articles on nonverbal communication and neurodivergent children graced the pages of esteemed scientific journals. But what truly struck Vanessa was the revelation that 3 years prior, he had forsaken a luminous academic path following a scandal that darkened his life. His younger brother, diagnosed with severe autism, had passed away under the care of the Horizon Clinic, the very same clinic where Lucas received his monthly experimental treatments owned by Collins Enterprises. Vanessa's heart plummeted into despair. Marcus's presence at Elysium was no coincidence. He was observing, perhaps even plotting. The word revenge flickered in her mind like a dire omen. Meanwhile, in a modest apartment across town, Marcus was methodically arranging a wall adorned with documents. At its heart was a photo of his brother Jason, his smile a beacon of innocence. Surrounding it were clippings about the Horizon Clinic, financial records from Collins Enterprises, and candid photographs of Lucas at public events. "I'm getting closer, little brother," he whispered to the image, his voice a mix of determination and sorrow. "She'll come looking for me. I'm sure of it." His thoughts were abruptly interrupted by the phone's ring. "It's Pierre, the maitre d' at Elysium," the voice on the line said. "She's searching for you. She's hired a private investigator. She's desperate, Marcus." The boy has stopped speaking again. Marcus closed his eyes, a part of him reveling in the distress of Vanessa Collins, the woman whose corporate empire had profited from his brother's tragedy. 3 days later, Vanessa found herself in a secluded cafe far from the glare of publicity. Her nerves jangled like wind chimes in a storm. She had arrived an hour early, sent away her security detail, and driven her own car, unheard of acts for her. She needed this meeting on neutral ground where the truth could unfold without interference. When Marcus walked in, punctual and unassuming, in simple jeans and a blue shirt, Vanessa was taken aback. Nothing about his attire hinted at the academic genius documented in the dossier she clutched. He spotted her instantly, but before he approached, he did something that made her breath catch. He pulled a photograph of Jason from his pocket, glanced at it, then at her, and murmured something, a silent vow, perhaps. "Thank you for coming," Vanessa began, as he settled opposite her, his presence suddenly making the small table feel like a vast, silent canyon between them. "I didn't come for you," Marcus said, his voice as dry as the desert wind. "I came for Lucas." The silence that followed was thick, almost tangible. Vanessa broke it, her voice steady. "You knew who I was from the beginning." It wasn't a question, but a statement, her eyes searching his for confirmation. Marcus met her gaze with an intensity that could have bored through steel. From the moment Horizon accepted Lucas as a patient and the job at the restaurant, he added with a half smile that suggested the threads of fate were not as random as they seemed. "Do you really believe in coincidences, Miss Collins?" Fear flickered within Vanessa, yet she quelled it with the skill of one who had navigated countless high-stakes negotiations. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice betraying none of the turmoil within. His answer was so unexpected, it felt like a punch to the gut. "I want you to hire me as Lucas's personal therapist with unrestricted access to all of his medical records." In the vast horizon of hope, Vanessa was ready to grant full control over her son's treatment. But the thought alone seemed utterly preposterous. "Why entrust my son to you?" she demanded, her voice tinged with both desperation and defiance. Marcus, ever the empathetic observer, leaned in, his eyes intense with a conviction. "Because at that restaurant, when everyone else saw chaos, I witnessed a young soul, Lucas, desperately signaling that the treatments you believe are aiding him are in fact causing harm." Unexpectedly, tears shimmered in Vanessa's eyes like morning dew. "How did you decipher the numbers, Mrs. Collins?" Marcus continued, his voice a whisper of urgency. "That sequence wasn't random. It was a countdown, yes, but also a code. Lucas is a prodigy fighting to survive the very treatments meant to help him." In that pivotal moment, Vanessa's heart swelled with a love so fierce it could alter destinies. Not because she trusted Marcus, but because her love for Lucas was as boundless as the sky above. "My driver will deliver your contract tomorrow," she declared, rising with a grace that belied the storm within. "But hear me to Washington if this turns out to be some twisted vendetta for your brother's death. There is no corner of this earth where you can escape my wrath." What Vanessa missed in her swift departure from the cafe was the subtle tremble in Marcus's hands as he pocketed the photo of his brother. Nor did she see the discreet click of a tape recorder being turned off beneath the table. The intricate chess game between them had only just begun, with Lucas both the king and the pawn, a pivotal figure neither could afford to lose. 3 months had flown by since Marcus Washington assumed the mantle of Lucas's private therapist. The transformation in the boy was nothing short of miraculous. Not only did he start speaking again, but he now articulated his thoughts in full sentences, drew with intention, and even crafted mathematical codes to convey his emotions. Back at the Collins mansion, the once tense air was slowly morphing into a delicate semblance of normalcy. On that radiant morning, Vanessa sat in her glass office, the sunlight casting a warm glow, reflecting the fragile peace she now dared to hope for. From her lofty perch on the 40th floor of Collins Tower, Vanessa's eyes scanned the latest updates on Lucas. The screen revealed a boy transformed, smiling, confident, liberated. A part of her soul exhaled in relief, yet a watchful part of her spirit remained ever vigilant, tracking Marcus's every move from afar. Her thoughts were suddenly pierced by her assistant's voice. "Dr. Montgomery is on the line again, Vanessa. She insists it's urgent." Vanessa's brow furrowed, her mind racing with concern. Elizabeth had been strangely elusive lately, dodging lunches, avoiding visits to the mansion. "Connect her," Vanessa instructed, her voice tinged with apprehension. Elizabeth's voice crackled through the speakerphone, fraught with tension. "We need to talk, Vanessa, not on the phone." Vanessa, already feeling the weight of the day, retorted, "I'm busy, Liz. Get to the point." A heavy sigh came through the line, laden with the burden of what was to come. "It's about Dr. Washington and Horizon," Elizabeth confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've discovered something disturbing." Vanessa's heart pounded against her chest like a drum of war. "My office in an hour," she commanded, her mind already leaping ahead. As she waited, Vanessa's fingers danced over the combination of her personal safe, retrieving a folder labeled Project Chrysalis Confidential. Within lay documents so secretive that even the board members were unaware, signed only by her and Dr. Winters, the enigmatic director of Horizon. These pages whispered of experimental studies, unapproved techniques, and promising results shadowed by acceptable side effects. When Elizabeth entered, her face bore an expression Vanessa hadn't seen since their college days, the same look of fierce determination when they confronted an abusive professor who threatened their very futures. "What do you know about Jason Washington?" Elizabeth's question was blunt, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Marcus's brother, only that he died at Horizon during experimental treatment." Vanessa responded, her voice steady, but her heart not. Elizabeth placed a flash drive on the table with a thud. "Not quite. He didn't pass away. According to these internal reports, Jason was deliberately used as a test subject for the Chrysalis Protocol without proper informed consent." Vanessa paled the room, spinning slightly as she processed the gravity of the revelation. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice a mix of fear and disbelief. "Marcus came to me 2 months ago. I didn't want to believe it, but the documents." Elizabeth bit her lip, her eyes searching Vanessa's for any sign of prior knowledge. "Of course not," Vanessa exclaimed, standing abruptly as memories of a hastily signed document flashed through her mind. The room was thick with the weight of their shared history and the ominous shadows of Horizon's secrets. A storm of disbelief and fear clouded Elizabeth's thoughts as fragments of the email barely registered in her mind. "I would never condone such actions." The evidence was irrefutably documented. The chilling realization that the same sinister protocol was being applied to Lucas sent shivers down her spine. The words cascaded like heavy stones into a still pond, each one sending ripples of dread through her. Impossible. Lucas was only showing temporary improvements. The long-term neurological repercussions were too horrifying for Elizabeth to even articulate. Vanessa's phone shattered the heavy silence, vibrating with urgency. It was the mansion's private line. Mrs. Collins, her voice quivering with anxiety, reported, "Dr. Washington is in the main office with Lucas. He's locked the door and has taken over the house transmission system. He's broadcasting something on every screen. Call security now." Vanessa bellowed, her voice echoing as she sprinted towards the elevator, Elizabeth right behind her. In the opulent halls of Collins' mansion, every device from the grand television in the drawing room to the smallest tablet in the kitchen displayed the same harrowing scene. Marcus, with an unsettling calm, sat beside Lucas, facing a wall of damning evidence. "Good afternoon, Vanessa." Marcus addressed the camera directly. "I assume you're en route," he reassured. "Lucas is perfectly safe, perhaps for the first time since his treatment began at Horizon." Lucas, with a gentle wave, chimed in. "Hi, Mom. I'm helping Dr. Marcus to save other children." Marcus then gestured toward the wall of documents, his voice grave. "What you see here is the truth about Project Chrysalis." He explained how this experimental protocol intended to reprogram neurodivergent brains using nanotech promised a cure for autism, but instead delivered irreversible damage. The camera focused on a photograph, a young boy that his eyes mirroring Marcus's own. "This is Jason, my brother." Marcus's voice softened. "Diagnosed with severe autism at age 4 and placed in the Chrysalis program without our full consent. He died at 12 from complications we were never warned about." The broadcast then shifted to security footage from Horizon capturing children in distress, doctors in a frenzy, and meetings where critical risks were shrugged off. "What you didn't know, Vanessa, is that while you thought Lucas was improving, the very protocol was being administered to him as well." "Sight of truth and healing, Vanessa." Elizabeth said, her voice steady yet laced with sorrow. "You've lost sight of what Horizon was meant to be. You've let ambition cloud your vision." As Vanessa stood there, the weight of her empire crumbling, the room seemed to hold its breath. The screens flickered, still broadcasting Marcus's revelation, his voice a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Today, I'm not just exposing the truth, I'm presenting the solution. Marcus had declared his words, now echoing through the mansion, through the lives of countless families waiting for answers for justice. Lucas, with a newfound strength in his young frame, stood protectively before Marcus. His eyes, usually filled with the innocence of youth, now bore the wisdom of one who had seen too much. "No, Mom," he said, his voice firm, a stark contrast to his usual timid demeanor. "Dr. Marcus saved me. He saved my brain." The simplicity of his statement was profound, cutting through the corporate deceit like a knife. Marcus rose his presence, commanding his every movement, imbued with a dignity that made Vanessa's heart sink further. "You have two options, Vanessa." He began, his tone not of triumph, but of somber duty. "First, deny everything. Sue me. Use your power to silence the truth. In that case, the evidence has already been sent to the Washington Post, the New York Times, and federal prosecutors." He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to sink in, watching as Vanessa's face contorted with the realization of her precarious position. "Second option, acknowledge your mistakes, take responsibility, and use your fortune and influence to repair the damage. Fund corrective treatments for every affected child. Reform Horizon as an ethical research center. Make the difference you always wanted to make before you got lost in the numbers." Elizabeth, ever the silent sentinel, stepped forward. Her presence was a reminder of the values once held dear by Horizon, now seemingly buried under layers of ambition and greed. "You too, Liz." Vanessa's voice cracked, the betrayal palpable, the room heavy with the weight of broken trust and lost ideals. The scene was set, the stage prepared for Vanessa's choice, one that would ripple through the lives of many, a decision between further darkness or the dawn of redemption. "How can you be on the wrong side when you remember the woman I met in college?" Lucas asked his mother, his voice tinged with a mix of hope and disbelief as he reached out to touch her hand. His touch was gentle, almost as if he feared she might crumble, like the empire she had once built. Vanessa's knees buckled under the weight of her past decisions, and she sank into a nearby chair, the screens before her flashing with images of Jason's smile juxtaposed against documents she had signed in haste, protocols she barely recalled endorsing. "It's too late," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the electronics. Dr. Marcus, with a click, silenced the cameras, his gaze firm yet compassionate. "It's never too late to do what's right, Vanessa. I spent 3 years plotting your downfall, but meeting Lucas changed everything. Revenge wouldn't bring back my brother, but the truth could save countless children." He extended his hand, not in enmity, but in an offer of alliance for a cause larger than either of them. In that quiet office, enveloped by stark realities and daunting decisions, three lives hung in a delicate balance. The mansion, once a symbol of unassailable power, now seemed as vulnerable as a house of cards. Outside, the media's presence grew, their cameras and microphones poised to capture the unfolding drama, while inside the phones screamed for attention. Amidst this chaos, a haunting question lingered. Could one truly rise from the ruins of their own missteps? 3 years had elapsed since that fateful afternoon, and at the newly established headquarters of the Chrysalis Reborn Foundation, Vanessa Collins gazed out of the window. Below in the courtyard, children with neurodiverse minds played freely. Among them, Lucas, now 10, was explaining a complex mathematical concept to his peers with a newfound eloquence. "He really has a way with words now," Marcus observed, approaching with 2 cups of coffee in hand, no longer adorned in the garb of a waiter, but as a colleague in their shared mission. Now, as the scientific director of the foundation, Vanessa wielded her title not for personal gain, but with the earnest intent it was always meant to carry. Who would have dared to dream? We would find ourselves here. Vanessa, with a slight smile, accepted the cup from Marcus. The woman who once ruled vast corporate empires with icy precision had vanished. In her stead stood a leader transformed, still resolute, yet driven by a newfound purpose rather than the lust for power. 3 years ago, on that pivotal afternoon, Vanessa faced a crossroads. She could have chosen the path of least resistance, allowed Marcus to conceal the scandal, and sacrificed a few pawns on her corporate chessboard. Yet she did what no one anticipated. She shouldered full responsibility. Remember the day of the public hearing? Marcus inquired as they gazed out over the courtyard. How could she ever forget Vanessa Collins, dressed with impeccable care, stood before the Senate committee with the nation watching through countless cameras? I failed, she declared, her voice steady yet filled with remorse. Not just as a CEO, but as a mother, as a human being. Today I am here to do what is right. Collins Enterprises had been dismantled, reorganized into a nonprofit foundation dedicated to ethical research and revolutionary treatments for neurodivergent children. Vanessa's fortune, almost every penny, now funded treatments for over 600 children affected by the chrysalis protocol. Jason would be proud, Vanessa murmured softly. The name, once a source of friction between them, now brought only peace. Marcus's brother's photograph graced the main lobby alongside a commemorative plaque, a silent vow that no child would ever be silenced again. Elizabeth appeared at the doorway waving to them. They're here in the main auditorium. Families once desperate for justice now sat in a profound silence, witnessing not just accountability, but redemption. Vanessa stepped onto the stage unencumbered by notes or teleprompters. When we lose our way, she began, her voice resonant, the universe sometimes sends unlikely messengers. In a moment that felt like destiny unfolding, the room was alive with an electric anticipation, a collective breath held in suspense. It was as if the very air was waiting poised on the edge of revelation. Then Vanessa's voice, usually so composed, now quivered with a fervor that could not be contained. Today we stand at the precipice of a new dawn, she declared, her words echoing like a clarion call through the auditorium. Lucas, in the front row, his fingers tapping out a beat only he understood, beamed with pride. Beside him, an empty chair held a photograph of Jason Washington, a silent testament to his legacy. Vanessa's voice rose. The reverse protocol, a brainchild of Dr. Washington and our team, has been universally approved. It will be offered freely to all clinics dedicated to the care of neurodiverse children. No family shall bear the burden of cost. The room erupted in a symphony of applause, a crescendo of hope and relief. Marcus, observing from the shadows at the back, felt a tear trace a path down his cheek, a silent testament to the journey they had all endured. Vanessa, her eyes shining with conviction, continued. Some have questioned my choices, wondering if I regret the loss of my fortune, my empire. But let me tell you, I have never felt richer. She paused, locking eyes with Lucas. I've discovered that the truest wealth lies in honesty and the power of doing what is right, especially when the path is fraught with difficulty. As the crowd dispersed, leaving behind a quiet filled with unspoken promises, only Vanessa, Marcus, and Lucas remained. The boy, with a newfound confidence, approached his mother, his small hands offering a drawing not of codes but of three figures, their hands intertwined. Family, he whispered, his voice a soft echo in the vast space. Vanessa's gaze met Marcus's, the silent question hanging like a delicate thread between them. He nodded, barely noticeable. Yes, she responded, her voice steady as she took her son's hand, extending the other to Marcus. Family. On that serene afternoon, as the sun gilded the horizon, three souls who had once been at odds found themselves united by a profound truth. Sometimes our deepest wounds serve as gateways to our greatest healing. And as the gentle night embraced the chrysalis reborn foundation, a silent lesson reverberated through its corridors. True wealth has never been about money or possessions. It is about the richness of the heart, the legacy of love, and the courage to embrace change. In the grand tapestry of existence, it is not the vast empires we construct that define us, but the profound impact we have on individual lives when we muster the courage to act justly. This tale of transformation and redemption, stirring the very depths of your soul, beckons you to subscribe for more narratives illuminating humanity's capacity for good, even amidst the darkest times. Thank you, dear viewers, for joining us on this emotional journey. Your engagement means the world to us. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe to stay connected with stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us of our shared humanity.